Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Let's do some local sports roundup here because, well, I know we're starting to wrap up the football season. We'll know if teams like Rice Lake, Boyceville, Baldwin Woodville, DC Everest, Edgar Stratford, we'll know tonight if they advance to the state title game.
Right.
Which
Every
is next week.
semifinal is this evening.
Mm-hmm.
So, and around this area, you've got Rice Lake.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of there's a few, like you mentioned, there's a few when they're local. They're not, right in the backyard, but pretty close. Close enough that, certainly still warrants the spotlight.
Yeah.
So
we got quite a few listeners, Boyceville too.
yeah,
so
Boyceville. And then Boyceville is nice taking on Edgar. That's actually a rematch from their third round matchup last year.
Okay.
And that game is in Chippewa. So if you're looking for a game close to home, there's a couple that are going to be close. That's one.
Right.
Otherwise, Stanley, that will be host to Grantsburg and Bonduel.
Okay.
So if you're looking for that one, Grantsburg knocked off Regis last weekend. So, but otherwise, mentioned Rice Lake in Division II. They got West of Pier. That game's in Marshfield, so that's not that far of a drive either. But Rice Lake, kind of looking back at the games last week, it was almost kind of like it was revenge week in a way, because you look at there were so many rematches. Rice Lake and New Richmond, Boyceville and Spring Valley. Northwestern and St. Croix Falls. That's not necessarily one right in our backyard, but still another one where you had these two conference foes who played in the regular season. One team won, and then the playoffs, the other team won.
Interesting.
Spring Valley won in the regular season. New Richmond won in the regular season. St. Croix Falls won in the regular season, and then all those teams got beat last week. And so that just kind of goes to show, you can look at the regular season, but the regular season, it doesn't always necessarily say. Teams change over the course of a year, so
right.
But yeah, those are all very interesting matchups. With the Boyceville Edgar one. Last year Boyceville was able to score in Edgar. Not many teams could. I think for Boyceville, they can throw the ball. They have a really good balanced offense. I think that's going to be important as they, you try to move the ball on Edgar, and also, just defensively. I think you got to get some turnovers. Edgar is very good. They're a balanced team as well. They're not, they don't just have one running back or one player that they kind of run everything through. I think, even if it's a little bit tougher maybe to stop Edgar, you just get a couple turnovers. Maybe you force a fumble. Maybe you get a pick. Just find ways to give yourself an extra possession or two for that offense.
But 8-man football, we've got state championship tomorrow.
We do,
and you're going to be there.
I am. I'm going just to watch.
Okay.
Yeah, I got some friends. I know some people are connections to the team, so I'm just going just to watch. I want. It's just a game I want to go see.
Right.
So and it's Saturday, a rare open Saturday for me this time of year, and I'm going to go.
Say, yeah. So
make the quick jaunt down to Wisconsin Rapids.
2-1 seeds going at it.
Yep, 2-1 seeds. Really, the 8-player playoffs was kind of chalk a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, with
I know Solon might have been one of the only upsets, but that was a 3-2.
And that was that was kind of a there wasn't too many. I mean, I think you can look at the seedings for the 8-player playoffs and say that they kind of got it right. But yeah, you've got Owen Withy, and they will be making their first trip to state in the 8-player. They've got some state championships under their belt in 11-player. But yeah, they'll be taking on Lena St. Thomas Aquinas, which Lena is north of Green Bay. Obviously it's a co-op. But Owen Withy picked up the tight win last Friday in Stanley over Highland, 23-21. Lena St. Thomas Aquinas, you mentioned, defeated Northwood Solon Springs, 38-14 in Rhinelander. And for Owen Withy, it's keep doing what they do. I kind of brought this up last week, and I say this very complimentary, that in some ways they kind of just remind me of Iowa football, where you know what they're going to do, and the years they've got the really good talent, they're going to be very good at it. And I think this is one of those years.
Interesting.
They won what I believe to be the best conference in the state with the North Central East Conference, which also has McDonald and Gilman and Thorpe, and they emerged from that. They had,
because Thorpe was at state last year, right?
They were. Thorpe was at state last year. They lost to Florence in a great game. So. I think down the stretch, it helped Owen Withy to have close games with Gilman, with Clayton. After the first 5-6 weeks of the year, all their games were blowouts. They were up 35 points by halftime in all those games. But eventually, you need to be tested. And those teams were all good teams. They were good, solid state-ranked teams. And then they go into the postseason. They pick up some wins. They beat Port Edwards. They beat McDonald. And then last week, they beat Highland. So, this is an Owen Withy team that you know what they're going to do. you know what they're going to do to the point where if you've been watching this team long enough, you know the exact plays they're going to run. Mm-hmm. But they sequence it so well and they execute it so well. That's what they're about. That doesn't mean you can stop it. It's, I've talked with so many, be it McDonald coaches or Thorpe coaches or even Robert Rosemeyer Gilman over the years about Owen Withy, and the story is always kind of the same. It's like you kind of know what they're going to do, but it doesn't mean you can stop it. Mm-hmm. That's just how good they are at times, especially this year at it.
Right.
They're going to run the ball. They're going to be fundamentally sound. They're not going to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. They're going to require you to play a very good game to beat them.
Maybe old school Badgers too.
Yeah, that'd be another really good example. Those Barry Alvarez Badgers teams, where and I remember a few weeks ago after Owen Withy beat McDonald, talking to Coach Taylor Laube kind of about the team and about the season, and that was a game where they threw the ball twice, and he kind of joked, he's like, and it pained me to throw it twice.
Nice.
They were both completed passes, play action passes for big plays, but he's just like, that's just not what they want to do. They want to be able to run the ball. They want to control the clock. They want to put their defense in a good spot by not leaving them out on the field for a long time.
Right.
And those are all things that have worked for them.
That's an old school football mentality, because I'm thinking even Lombardi's Packers, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's...
And now, obviously kind of the more modern view of football is it's not necessarily about time of possession, it's just about plays, like the amount of plays you run, like especially in college where teams running up tempo. It's like, well, why do you do that? You might lose time of possession. It's true, but teams don't necessarily look at time of possession. They just look at how many plays do you run. And when you run up tempo, if you run 70 or 80 plays, people view that as being successful more than, well, you're keeping the other team from running plays.
Yeah. Texter here says, Grandman Mike, in the 8-man championship game, both teams combined for a total of 48 passing attempts all season long.
That's awesome. So. Yeah. So that if you're going to that game, like make sure you get there early, because just the way it goes, it might not be a very long game, and that's it's just going to put an emphasis on every possession, and I like that.
Yep, absolutely.
And that was even kind of last year with Florence when they won. Like they were a very run-based team, and the thing I do like. I like a lot of things about 8-man, but there are a few different ways you can do it. You can run. You can be a run team. You can be a pass team. You can be for the most part, you see teams either kind of. It really is kind of like high school football, or 11-player football, where teams are either very run heavy or they're kind of spread.
Yeah,
that's why a team like McDonald was always kind of unique to me, because they run I formation, which I have never seen. Like you don't even see that with 11-player teams anymore. Right, it's kind of one way or the other. So it's just I appreciate kind of the uniqueness of it.
Well, I was going to ask then, does that allow, do you think, for 8-man football, maybe for teams and coaches to be a little more creative?
Yes. Yeah.
In that aspect.
Certainly. Because there's just certain things you can do off it. And then there's certain rules when it comes to who's eligible and stuff like that, so that you can kind of get a little creative with. Mm-hmm. But yet, you look at a team like Owen Withy, where they're, I mentioned, they're doing the same thing they've been doing for 10, 20, 30 years, because they were able to adapt. Mm-hmm. And I remember this conversation I had last year with Thorpe's coach, Katie Stokes, about when they were going to state, and kind of about 3-4 years ago, when a lot of teams in this area they came to that fork in the road of, okay, 11-player football, 8-player football, what do we do? And Gilman did it a few years before, but Owen Withy, Thorpe, Cornell, Lake Holcomb, a lot of these teams, they kind of had that decision to make, just because the numbers weren't there for a viable 11-player team. And Katie Stokes had said, he goes, look, we wanted to do what's right for the kids. He goes, but at the end of the day, I looked at Gilman and I saw, well, if Robin Rosemeyer is doing this, and I looked at Owen Withy and I said, if Terry Laube's doing this, Terry Laube's in the Hall of Fame. Robin Rosemeyer is going to be there one day. If I look at these guys and say they're doing this, well, it's probably a pretty good idea for me to do it too, because these guys are pretty smart. Like they understand, and I have a lot of respect for coaches like that weren't hung up on the idea of when 8-player football first started. There was a lot of kind of negative stigma to it. Yeah. Oh, it's not football, blah blah blah, and that's kind of gone away. Mm-hmm. Like you're seeing that if you're a good football player, like colleges will find you. Mm-hmm. That was the case 25 years ago with Jim Leonard, where there was at one point it was crazy to think like there's this kid from Flambeau and he's going to go play for the Badgers. Okay, and he became an All-American. Mm-hmm. Like. If you're a good football player, especially now with as much as you can put yourself out there, college teams will find you.
Yes.
So that's not really a deterrent.
Right.
And I just have a lot of respect for these kind of established veteran coaches for not just kind of resting on their laurels and saying, well, this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way it's going to be.
Like, it's not ego, right?
Right, no. Yeah. It's understanding, hey, things change. We can change, but we can still we can still do this, but just do it a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really good way to look at things. Not just for football, but just for life in general.
Well, and at that point too, they're allowing their programs to continue at that point,
right?
Too,
and
right?
You come to that fork in the road where, you have two options. Either you go A player, and you need fewer players for A player to work. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just have fewer players on the field, or you have to co-op. Like Holcomb and Cornell had what I would consider to be a successful football co-op from 2012 to 2020. They were consistently in the playoff picture. They would win 5-6 games a year. That's good. Like, you're giving your kids a good experience there. But the opportunity to kind of keep that individual identity. Otherwise you'd be looking at like a Owen Withy Thorpe co-op or an Owen Withy Greenwood co-op, and people would get behind it, but there's just something different about when when you're able to kind of keep your own individual identity. Mm-hmm. That was kind of something McDonald ran into when they went A player versus, well, do the players just go across the street and maybe play for Chippewa? Mm-hmm. They wanted to keep their own individual identity, and I can understand that. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all sports fans. We root for laundry,
right?
Especially like college sports, it's very territorial. Mm-hmm. If you're a Badger fan or you're a Marquette fan, it's because of the area you're from,
right? Yeah, or the school you went to. Yeah, so
we're all, as sports fans, we're all territorial in some way.
Exactly. Did you see how my Medford Raiders lost?
I didn't see it. I mean, I saw it was a shootout.
So I didn't see it, but I heard what happened. You ready for this?
No.
So this is from our good buddy Matt Fry. This is because he covers it.
Oh,
but, it was a high. Yeah, you said shootout. Final score was 51-48. Medford had the lead, and then as Lacrosse Logan's quarterback is getting hit, he lofted a 13-yard touchdown pass with 21 seconds left.
Oh, wow. So it was really not literally, but pretty much one of those games where whoever has the ball last.
Yeah.
And because I had seen the updates, and it was just, it was like a ping pong game, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yep. So I was like, dang it. So we also have state swimming, though, going on, right?
We got state swimming, Division 2 tonight, Division 1 tomorrow in Waukesha.
Okay.
Number of local swimmers from the area are going to be down there. So, yeah, that's kind of between that and football are usually kind of the last two sports of the fall to wrap up. And we've already got winter practice underway. We got girls basketball, boys and girls hockey.
Yep.
We got gymnastics underway. I mean, certainly those are all sports we're going to be talking about a bunch here in the coming weeks and months.
Absolutely.
But, one season just kind of rolls into the other.
I got there's a good piece by Brandon, again, another one at Chippewa.com. But, with swimming, you talked about Evelyn Arnold, what she's competing in the shortest and the longest.
Right. And the events that say the 50 freestyle and the 500 freestyle, which is unique. I mean, she's the only Division I swimmer that's doing that. Mm-hmm. And, it's kind of like, well, you may be thinking like, well, why does that matter? It's like, well, imagine Usain Bolt running the 100-meter dash, then also running the 2-mile.
Right.
Like, it doesn't happen.
That's that gap.
And they're not that, like, you're running the shortest race and the longest race. Usually you're kind of setting yourself up to be better in one or the other. But I think that just kind of shows that, the kind of the talent she has, where, she won sectional championships in both of those events. We'll see how it goes tomorrow, but that's just such a unique thing that just doesn't happen often.
Right. So got that. I was going to. You already touched on basketball and such too. So WIAC wise, it's kind of a big couple days here for the WIAC. So first of all, men's soccer for the Blue Golds, they start their national run, national tournament today. They're hosting up at Simpson Field. So if you want to go check at 1 p.m. Taking on Lake Forest College, and every year they've advanced further and further. So hopefully, and we chatted with a couple of the players over there in our latest Rolling with the Golds podcast. We've also got the final football game for the Blue Golds. They're going to be at Carson Park tomorrow, taking on Whitewater. But then not far down the road on 94, Stout has a big game where they're taking on Platteville, and if Stout wins, they get a share of the conference title.
Yeah, it's crazy. That it could be like a 4-way.
Yeah,
like there's still a lot out there to be decided.
It is. I mean, and the team that's got the best right number one is Platteville. So they're 5-1 in WIAC, but you got Lacrosse that's 4-2, Oshkosh is 4-2, Stout's 4-2 up there. So, but Stout for a team I think has surprised a lot of people this year.
Right. And it's a team that it's so tough to break through into that top echelon of the WIAC because we know the programs are going to be up there, and it's changed a little bit over the years, but it's going to be Whitewater. Oshkosh has been up there many times. Like you mentioned lacrosse. Lacrosse has been River Falls has had a good year. Like it's just like it's so tough to get that upward mobility. But you got to give a lot of credit to that program for being able to do that.
Right.
Like, look, you're going into the last week of the regular season with a chance to win a conference championship. Any football coach in the country, wherever you're coaching college football, would take that.
Exactly. And Stout's coming off that win against Oshkosh too. I mean, they've had some premier wins this year,
right? And having
45-42,
and having that game at home. I mean, I have a feeling Williams Stadium is going to be. I have to imagine they're going to be pretty raucous for that.
Oh yeah, and they should be.
Right.
Every student at Stout should be going over there.
Right. It's during the day. You may have other stuff going on at night, but come on.
You'd rather watch that one than the Badger-Oregon football game that night. Let's just say that.
So you sound like you're not picking that upset.
No. I'm surprised the point spread last I saw was as close as it was. It was like 2 touchdowns. I'm hammering over on that. So, all right, good stuff, man. Local Sports Roundup, our good buddy Brandon Berg knocking it out of the park as always.